Dave Ramsey, he is one of the most controversial figures in personal finance because on one hand, he has helped millions of people pay off debt and start their journey on financial freedom. On the other hand, he can give some really terrible advice. And today, I am going to rank them. I'm going to take the top pieces of advice from Dave Ramsey and rank them in terms of severity and how bad they are. Let's go ahead and break it down. Now, what I did and how I did this was take each piece of advice and then rank them in terms of how dangerous they are. Now, some pieces of advice, like start an emergency fund and get $1,000, that's totally fine, okay? Should it be more? Yes, I think everybody would agree, but starting that is a good milestone, so that is not something that's going to be on this list. However, he's got some stuff that can really mess you up, so let's go ahead and start at the least severe and then work our way up. So the first one is only get a 15-year mortgage. He talks about this a lot, and there is an advantage to getting a 15-year mortgage, which is why it's at the bottom of the list, but there are some disadvantages that you do want to know about. So basically, for those who may not know, a regular mortgage is typically 30 years. It is a loan. The bank will give you a loan, you get 30 years to pay it off, and it is relatively stable. Now, a 15-year mortgage helps you to get out of debt a whole lot faster, but there is an exchange here. Your payment is going to increase, okay? So let's say your mortgage is $2,000 over 30 years. Well, you crunch it into 15, it could double, right? That's going to make it a lot more expensive for you. Now, if you can afford that and that's in your budget, I actually have no issues with it. However, here's the thing. You can get a 30-year mortgage and just pay it in 15 and pay it a lot sooner just by doubling up your payments. For me, I make payments every 2 weeks. That gives me an extra payment every year, and it's going to help me pay off my mortgage a bit faster. Why I like taking a 30-year mortgage and just paying it on your own schedule, basically, is the fact that it gives you more flexibility. So, for example, let's say that I can afford a $4,000 mortgage, but I get a 30-year mortgage anyway, right? That means that I can pay it off faster, but if I run into something, if I run into some issues, I can just go back to paying what is required, the $2,000, and save that money and do other things. That's going to allow you the flexibility. Now, if you have a 15-year mortgage and something happens, let's say you lose your job or something like that, you don't have that option. You need to pay that $4,000. And the end, that's it. That's the end, right? So I think it makes more sense to get a 30-year mortgage. If you want to pay it off faster, you can. I like to harken this back on how I paid off my student loans for undergrad was during the pandemic. I was not required to make any payments, but I did anyway. And at times where I said, hey, look, money's a little tight, or I had to spend more money in this area, yeah, I don't have to pay. I'm fine, right? So it gave me that flexibility. I wasn't required to do it. I think a 50-year mortgage can make sense, but I don't think you should really force yourself into it when you have the option to still pay it off in 15 years without the contractual obligation. So that one's at the bottom of the list. Next one is paying your house off early in general. He is very big on after you've accomplished a certain amount of what he calls baby steps, saving, paying off credit cards, stuff like that. He's really big on paying off your mortgage early. I don't have that big of an issue with that. Now, where I would rank that, I think is important. I think it really depends on what your interest rate is. So right now, if you got an interest rate that's 4% or lower, I'm not entirely sure if it makes sense to aggressively pay off your mortgage now when the stock market is paying 15% or something like that. It will make more sense to pay my mortgage as scheduled or pay a little bit more as scheduled and then really get a bigger return in the market. Again, not the worst piece of advice, but it's on here, right? These first two, I'm okay with, right? I'm not going to really be upset if someone decides to pay off their mortgage early, but I think there's an opportunity cost, right? You can pay it off early, or you can get a bigger return by investing elsewhere. Because again, remember, these are 15-year commitments, 30-year commitments, so it can cost you a lot of time that you could have been making more money somewhere else. Next one here is living without credit, basically not having a credit score, not having credit history at all. Now this is a big thing because he talks about it a lot. He actually brags about not having a credit score at all. That sounds cool to not, need it, but it's also easier to say if you're a multimillionaire, you don't need credit at all. I don't like this piece of advice. I do think it's a bit dangerous because especially someone starting, I don't know, in the 2000s, starting your life at that point, you need a credit score just to get a cell phone bill in your name. If you don't already have a mortgage, you are going to need that. You cannot rent an apartment in some cases without having some sort of credit history. That can hurt you if you don't have it. Now, the good thing is you can manage your credit and have a great credit score while having little to no credit card debt or little to no debt across the board. Like, that is doable, okay? That is doable. You can pay your bills on time or not have any credit card balance and be fine, right? He tends to be very black and white around a lot of those things, especially, I'm telling you, if you're starting off your life, you do want a credit score. However, remember, having a good credit score does not mean that you have a lot of debt or that you have debt at all, okay? They don't have to be synonymous. They don't have to, okay? So I want to make sure that I emphasize that. Now, as we move up the list, here's where things get really, is where I raise eyebrow even more here. So all debt is bad. If you have followed this man at all, you know he is a strident enemy of debt. I get it, okay? Nobody likes to owe anybody. No one likes to pay debt. But here's the thing. All debt is not the same, okay? I don't think he's ever acknowledged that at all. But all debt is not the same. Credit card debt, I think we would all agree, is real bad. If you're paying 19%, 20% or more, that's very, very difficult to climb out of. Credit card debt is almost never an asset to you, and it's not great, okay? Credit card debt, ugh, okay, that is bad. You should really aggressively pay that off. However, student loan debt, it varies. We talked about the value of college here on this channel. If you haven't checked that one out, go and see it. We talk about whether or not college is a scam, and some degrees are worth more than others. So if you get an engineering degree or a business degree and you paid $50,000 and you have a $50,000 debt for student loans, but you're making $20,000 salary, you won at the end of the day, right? It's going to increase your earning power by $1 million. I'll take a $50,000 loan if I'm going to make $2 million over my lifespan, which is the average pay for college graduates. Go back and check that video, right? So that could make sense. Now, again, does it make sense for me to go and take out a $50,000 student loan on the history of camera phones? Probably not, right? So that one does depend. But again, that's the point, right? Not all debt is the same. Some debt should be looked at differently than others. A mortgage, at the end of the day, is a debt, right? So take that and really analyze it. Not all debts are the same. That's going to help you to prioritize and pay off what needs to be paid off. And then we'll look at things with a better lens. The reason why that's also important is because in my line of work, and you've probably seen it, you've probably asked yourself this as well, should I cash out of my 401k to pay off debt? Should I take out of X, Y, and Z to pay off debt? And the answer is, well, again, it depends. If that debt is a 5% loan or a 4% loan, probably not. You just, pay it off, make an extra payment here and there. It doesn't make sense for you to sell off an important asset or something that's paying you way more to go and do that just to feel better. I see far too many people trying to just zero out everything. I have no debt, but then you don't have anything in savings, you don't have anything in your retirement accounts, you're not investing, you're still at zero, right? And that doesn't always make the most sense. So debt is different, right? Not all debt is 100% bad. They are looked at differently because there are different interest rates, they're valued different, and it's all about really what do you get from that debt. If I go and have, I buy my wife a whole bunch of Coach bags and all this really nice stuff, and I get a brand new car, and we're, $30,000, $40,000 in debt for that, probably not the best. But if I bought a property, it's different, right? So always make sure that you are looking at it properly. All debt is not bad inherently. All right, as we move up the list, next thing to take a look at is unrealistic investment returns. Now, we have done an entire video about this and why his advice was so wrong. Definitely go out and check that video out. If you don't know, he and his team actually got that video demonetized. I cannot make money from that video because of him and his team. Apparently, they were a little upset about that. But in either case, this one can be dangerous, and it actually is dangerous because the stock market, and we have talked about this before, I've shown you guys the evidence, the stock market makes 10% on average per year. When you count inflation, you're looking at a 7% return, okay? So I always say 7 to 10% is what you should expect on average. And you guys know, because I've been a licensed financial advisor, I try to be very careful about those words. You will almost never get exactly 7 or exactly 10. It's always above or below or somewhere in between, and it just averages out in that way. But if you have read any of Dave Ramsey's books, or you listen to his podcast, or even check his Twitter feed, he basically says you're getting 12% every single year. 12%, 12%, 12%. It ain't 12. That's just not true, okay? It is not, the stock market does not return a 12% average. That has not been the case. It has not been the case in the last 50 or so years. Again, go back and check that video. I showed you guys the numbers there. That's just not the case, okay? So you want to be careful about that, because if you are doing retirement planning, right, you're saying I'm going to contribute 12% of my salary, I'm going to get this much at the end of 30 years or at the end of 10 years or whatever, you're playing your entire strategy based on that 12%. And when you are wrong, that's going to cost you. And especially if you are wrong by 5%. Remember, this is compounding interest. So what you think could be a small percentage point in 1 year can be huge decades down the line. So you want to be extremely, extremely careful about that. So unrealistic investment returns can be extremely dangerous for your planning purposes and just for your math purposes across the board. Moving up into the top two here is paying off your debt before investing and just being so strident about that. Now, remember, not all debt is the same. I talked about that earlier, right? So would I consider pausing my own retirement and stopping investing for 6 months to pay off credit card debt? Would I be okay with that? Probably. Okay, and the reason why I say probably is because it's only 6 months, okay? And if my credit card debt is 25% and the stock market is only going to get me 7 to 10%, the math tells me to go ahead and pay that credit card debt off, right? So that is one thing that you could do, right? So it depends on what debt we're talking about. Number two, this is dangerous because let's say you can't do it in 6 months and it's going to take you 6 years to pay off that debt. Well, 6 years of compounding interest that you miss can be very dangerous and very costly, and that doesn't really make that much sense. The other thing too, I made this case back in 2020 and in 2021. Go back and watch those videos where I talk so much about the options that you have when it comes to debt that you do not have when it comes to investing. I think that is perhaps the most important thing. When I brought this example up before student loan forgiveness was a thing, before things were paused with the whole student loan interest and all that kind of stuff, you have the option when it comes to debt. I can refinance. I can take that balance and transfer it somewhere else. I can get a personal loan to get a lower interest rate. Perhaps I can get that debt forgiven or negotiated. I can do all that stuff to manage my debt. I cannot do that with investing. Under no circumstances can I pause time and say, wait a minute, I was paying off my debt the last few years. Can I go back and get the exact same price for Apple stock back in 2000 so I can be rich now? You don't get that option. Once you miss that time, once you miss that compounding interest, that is it. It is gone. You will never get it again. I can, again, call up like a medical debt, right? Medical debt is different than everything else, but I can call up the hospital or wherever and say, look, I'm just not getting this notice. Things are going on. You say I owe $1,000. Can we bring it down to like, I don't know, $750? I can start make a payment plan. You can do that. That is something that you can do. Right? I can put it on a 0% credit card. We talked about how I purposely ruined my credit score to make some repairs around the house because it was 0%. Okay, check out that video, number one. But also, that's why, right? I can do those things with debt. I cannot do those things with investments. If I miss out on investing in Tesla way back when, that's gone. And it's not going to come back. Okay, so you want to be very careful about missing time from investing to go and aggressively pay off debt. But again, remember, all debts are different. Okay, so you want to be very, very careful there. But that can be extremely dangerous. I mean, not investing for 10 years, that's going to hurt you. Not investing for any amount of time is going to hurt you, but not investing for a year or more can be very, very dangerous. Next one here is one that I think is perhaps the most dangerous, and that is an unrealistic withdrawal rate. A withdrawal rate is once you have invested all the money, right? Let's say you get $1 million and you quit working. That's what retirement is. And you can live off of your money alone, living off the interest, right? Well, a withdrawal rate is saying, look, you got $1 million. How much do you take out of that to live your normal life, vacate, I say vacate, but vacay, and just have fun, right? Well, Dave Ramsey recommends 8%. 8% is not good. Okay, 8% is not good because remember, I told you that the stock market grows at 7%. The entire point of investing in retirement planning is this. You grow your money and you take out just enough to live on so that you never draw down on that original sum. That's the point. I want to grow enough interest so I can use it and it just grows right back, just like my hair right now. We'll see how long I'm able to keep my hair. Because my dad is bald and you know, we'll see. So at this point, right, you can kind of get the point in that I would like my hair to grow out, cut it, and right back, same every single time. All I don't want to do is go bald. I want to cut it too deep where the hair does not grow back at all. So when it comes to your investments, here's the thing. The stock market only grows at 7% on average after inflation. Dave Ramsey has you taking out 8. 8 is more than 7, that leaves you with a -1. Okay, so that means that you are slowly pulling down on that nest egg. You're slowly pulling down on all those investments, which one could mean that you could go back to work at an advanced age, which is probably something you don't want to do. And then number two, what that does is it actually continues to lower the amount that you are receiving. Because remember, 7% of a million is what, 70,000? And then what happens when it's 800,000? You're taking 7% or 8% of that, which is what he's requiring you to do. Less money, right? And then as that continues to shrink down, you keep taking on 8, that's really going to put you in a bind and really have you in a very dangerous situation. However, most experts say that 4% is a good rule of thumb. I want to focus on the word rule of thumb. That's because some years it makes sense to pull out 4. Other years it may make sense to pull out 3, and we call it a dynamic withdrawal. So it really depends on what the market is doing, and you are adjusting in that way. The reason why people choose 4% is because, again, the way the market is working. If inflation is 3%, which tends to be the average around, and the market is growing at 7%, so look, okay, I'm taking out 4%, and then I include inflation, that's about 7%. So if I'm taking out 7%, the market is growing at 7%, I stay even the entire time, and I'm not pulling down on the nest egg. So in theory, okay, the market does change, right? But in theory, if I have $1 million, I'm pulling out 70,000 each and every year. Inflation happens, market grows. Inflation happens, market grows. And I'm consistently living off 70,000. At the end of my life, I can take on $1 million, pass it to my kids, and now they start with $1 million. And that's how you build generational wealth. Now you could argue, yes, and people argue with me in the comments, well, if I want to leave my kids anything, I want to live more lavishly than $70,000 a year or whatever. You can do that. That's totally fine, right? It's totally up to you. It is your retirement plan. However, it ain't going to work if the math don't work. And that's what it is at the end of the day. And an 8% withdrawal rate is just very, very dangerous and unrealistic because it is based on the other factor here on our list with him thinking that 12% is going to be what the stock market is going to give you, which historically has not been the case. This is it, right? These are the biggest, most dangerous items that I found that Dave Ramsey preaches. So here's what I need you to do. Other than like and subscribe, go and do that, okay? Go and do that. But what I need you to do is, did I miss anything? What are some other pieces of dangerous advice that you think I missed, or did I have these in the wrong order? I really want to hear from you guys. And also, if you want to learn more about what I think about Dave Ramsey, his investment strategy, and other investing tips, you want to check out these videos right here.